A sexy, mysterious, shocking full moon in Scorpio, Monday, May 12th, 2025, 9:55 a.m. Pacific Time. Adjust for your time zone accordingly. Hello, my name is Eliane Nicole. I'm your astrologer and tarot reader, and in this video, I am going to talk about both the astrology and the tarot of this very intriguing, emotional, and intense full moon of Scorpio that's coming up Monday, May 12th. But first, I want to say, if you're watching this on Instagram, I'm only going to post the first 3 minutes of the video here. The entire video will be available on my YouTube channel, Eliane Nicole. My YouTube channel is my name, Eliane Nicole. Please find me there. I will put a link in the profile bio of my Instagram to get there. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Please hit the notification bell so that you're notified every time I post a new video. Please like, please comment, please share. It helps me grow my channel and my business. It helps me in the algorithm and to grow my community. And it puts me in a position to continue to give these free astrological offerings. If you're watching this on Instagram, please make sure that you are following astrology.tarot.Eliane Nicole. Please like, please comment, please share. It's free for you, very helpful to me. And now without further ado, I'm going to get into the interpretation of the full moon of Scorpio, Monday, May 12th. And we have a full moon in Scorpio every year, but each year, the way that the rest of the sky is arranged around it is different. So while there are certain qualities of every Scorpio full moon, 2025 definitely has very unique qualities because of the alignments that are going on with this full moon. And the most notable and obvious alignment that all astrologers are talking about off the bat is the opposition to Uranus. Uranus is the disruptor, the revolutionary, the rebel. Uranus is also the inventor, and the scientist. But Uranian energy in general brings the element of surprise, plot twists, shocks. And when you're dealing with the energy of Scorpio and the moon, we're dealing with the emotional body, we're dealing with the physical body, we're dealing with the mother, we're dealing with the home. So we're dealing with very personal issues that are potentially being stimulated by these, more Uranian forces, which can be, erratic, rebellious, shocking, surprising. It runs the gamut, but it's like that kind of energy. And so oppositions also, they tend to be of the nature of Saturn, and all full moons are oppositions. It's always the sun opposing the moon, and that's why the moon is full. And the full moons always bring heightened emotions. They can bring heightened instincts and intuition, in some cases psychic abilities, especially with a full moon like the Scorpio full moon. Any of the water full moons tend to be very psychic. The moon it struggles in Scorpio. This is not the easiest position for the moon. The moon is considered in its detriment in Scorpio because the moon has to do with things like, in its natural home in Cancer, has to do with things like birth and home and, growth. And Scorpio has more to do with like elimination and death. And so the energies, there's an edge, and the sun and the moon, the full moon, there's always an inherent edge. And that's why you see that the, crime rate goes up under the full moon. The emergency rooms are going crazy, even the coffee shops, even, just on the streets and in traffic. And, there's just heightened emotions, heightened energy under the full moon. With Scorpio, we're dealing with themes like death, sex, rebirth, regeneration, transformation, alchemy, magic, you know, and so, you know, other people's money, power. So these are all going to be topics that could be highlighted under this full moon, depending on how it's hitting your personal chart. And this full moon is at 22 degrees, 13 minutes, Scorpio. And so it's going to be really, this is going to be a personal full moon for all Scorpios because it's your one full moon of the year. So it's a big illuminating point in your year. But especially people with a sun in Scorpio from 20 to 25 degrees, sun or moon in Scorpio, or Taurus, 20 to 25 degrees. It'll be conjunct your sun or moon, and it's involving your sign. And so it'll be the most personal to those Taurus and Scorpios, while all Taurus and Scorpios, I think, will feel it personally. And so the Taurus-Scorpio axis is what's being lit up here. And it's being lit up for all of us, just the most personally for Scorpios and Taurus. And this is the axis of desire, the axis of attraction. This is the axis of money and possessions. This is the axis of sex and attraction. It's the axis of life and death. It's the axis of so many things, you know, attachment is on the Scorpio-Taurus axis. You know, there's so much about, money and resources. So there's a lot on this axis. And this Scorpio full moon, it's in the third decan of Scorpio, which is ruled by Venus. And so there is a Venus in Scorpio kind of feeling to it. It feels like it's, you know, definitely one of the big themes is around relationships. It could bring endings to relationships. There does feel like there is a note of finality in this full moon because it's the last full moon in Scorpio that will oppose Uranus in Taurus. And this has been an 8-year cycle. So for some people, this may be the finality of an 8-year cycle. For other people, this may be the finality of a 2-year cycle or a 1-year cycle. For some, there's a finality of like a 28-year cycle because of this Saturn in Pisces, which is trine the moon, which is interesting because Saturn is one of the malefics, but he's trine the moon in Pisces. So the trine between Pisces and Scorpio feels like a lot of spiritual fortitude, emotional fortitude, you know, joy and compassion, empathy, generosity, flowing. You know, it feels like high emotional intelligence. It feels like healthy emotional boundaries. It feels like being in the flow of the current of life. It feels like having safe emotional containers. And so I do love the trine to Saturn. But, you know, still and yet there is this finality to this full moon. You know, there is a culminating point, endings. It feels very emotional, like tears could be shed. You know, there could be crying during this full moon. In general, again, the moon is uncomfortable in Scorpio. This is a Mars full moon. So the Mars, a full moon in Mars can feel emotionally embattled. Mars, however, is in Leo, trine Venus. So there's also this other energy around relationships. It's this very strong new start, like new spark of passion kind of energy going on, and really great, passionate, creative energy. And also, it could even be like athletic kind of energy, you know, just really great physical energy and motivation. But the Venus-Mars trine feels really good for relationships and feels like a real connection happening and real chemistry, and then it's sextile Pluto, and so there's like this moving forward into the future together, this growth that's happening slowly but surely. And so I think it just depends on what angle the astrology is hitting you at. The full moon itself over there with the people on the fixed axis from 20 to 25, that's more ending kind of energy, emotional, sudden, unexpected endings. The Mars-Venus trine is more for folks who have personal planets in the 5 to 14 degree area of the fire signs or the air signs. So, that's going to be, well, not so much Aquarius. Aquarius is in that fixed axis, but Gemini and Libra have some opportunities, and through, around relationships, creativity, goals, ambitions, as a side note happening around this full moon. And but Sagittarius, Aries, and Leo might be just really in action and just finding things like there is fire under your feet and you are going for it, with bravery and courage and energy and inspired action. So so that's happening. And full moon, Scorpio, alchemy, hidden motivations, death, sex, secrets, mysteries. This full moon could reveal secrets. It could, the full moon in Scorpio is a detective's full moon, so it can bring cracking the case, especially Mercury is square Pluto, so it can be cracking a very difficult case, a 28-year-old case, a 7-year-old case, a 2-year-old case, a 1-year-old case. But I think people are going to be cracking cases, solving mysteries during this full moon. And on the note of finality, one of the tarot cards is the Death card. This card is the major arcana that rules Scorpio. Sometimes it has to do with literal death, but sometimes it has to do with more, metaphorical deaths. It can be an ego death. It can be the end of a job, the end of a relationship, moving from a home. It can even be pregnancy or marriage sometimes, because it's the death of an old life and the beginning of a new life. So death comes when any major change is happening, but it's always cyclical. So it's always birth to, there is a sunrise happening in the bottom. I mean, he's marching through with death and destruction, but the sun is rising and there's a new day on the other side. So that is the major arcana that is associated with Scorpio. So that is one of the cards associated with this full moon. And we've also got, let's see. So I talked about it being final because it's the last opposition to Uranus. But I wanted to talk about, and so that ties into the Death card, the finality of this full moon. But again, who will be most affected by it personally? Obviously Scorpios and Tauruses, because it's on your axis. But Leos and Aquariuses with 20 to 25 degrees personal planets, or midheaven or IC on 20 to 25 degrees Leo or Aquarius. This will be a very challenging full moon. It's going to illuminate something that requires action. This could be a secret. This can be something that has been buried or unseen in some way that is now rising to the surface to be seen. And it may require swift action in dealing with it. There could be, for Scorpio and Leo, there can be, there's a conflict between perhaps what is presented on the outside. So you know, celebrities and fame or the public profile versus what's going on behind the scenes, what's going on behind closed doors, what's really happening beneath the surface. And in some cases for people, it will have to do with their children and, you know, either, you know, endings that are coming for children, transformation happening for children, unfortunately death in some cases, but also like a, you know, privacy issues with children may be coming up, as well as just deeper topics coming up around the emotions of children, teenagers, that are being challenged during this time. And then the, you know, the square to the opposition to Uranus. I talked about a lot of what that axis is, but you know, there's so much in that axis: life and death, you know, money and resources, power, you know, attachment, desire. So all of these kinds of topics are being illuminated under this full moon, or coming to culminating points, graduating points, endings, finales under this full moon. People who are going to love this full moon: Cancer and Pisces. Anyone with sun, moon, rising, midheaven, or, you know, IC at 20 to 25 Cancer or Pisces, this full moon will create a grand trine for anyone with the Cancer placements because of the moon and Saturn. So this is just emotional fulfillment, emotional fortitude, you know, support, happiness, the full picture. You know, good luck, high vibrational emotions like joy and generosity, compassion, empathy. It's very creative, it's very expressive, it's fertile, very fertile for Cancer, Pisces, 20 to 25 degrees. And it could bring about very soulful experiences, feelings, or events. And it's also good for Virgo and Capricorn. Anyone with planets, personal planets from 20 to 25 degrees, Virgo or Capricorn, it's going to bring opportunities for creativity. It's a sextile. Opportunities for rebirth or regeneration, opportunities to grow food or gardens, money, business, babies, work, whatever. Very opportunities for growth. Sextile, so if you're in that position where you have personal planets at 20 to 25 degrees Virgo, you have to recognize the blessing to receive it. You have to interact. The opportunity's there. It's not going to land in your lap like a trine might. With a sextile, you have to look for the opportunity, recognize it, interact with it, and go for it. But it's there. So that's why you've got astrology to know. Catch those little evasive sextiles that can just slip through your fingers without noticing. Make the most of it. And yeah, the full moon, a culminating point, sudden breakups, breakthroughs, breakdowns, breakouts, break-ins. Yeah, that Scorpio Uranus opposition can break things suddenly, unexpectedly, literally or figuratively. And yes, unexpected emotional endings. Scorpios can emotionally amputate like no other. If they have been hurt or betrayed, they will sever the bond and never look back. Yeah, Taurus, Scorpio is about acquisition and attachment. So they have a hard time letting go, but it's a necessary phase of development. Uranus is connected to the moon, gives it an erratic nature to lunar energies like our bodies, our mothers, our homes, our emotions. Taurus, Scorpio is the power axis, is the axis of possession and attachment, the axis of attraction and desire, the axis of romance and sex, the axis of money and resources, There could be an emotional confrontation over value differences under this full moon. I talked about the Saturn Pisces trine. So it's the third decan of Scorpio. Other planetary alignments that are happening. The sun will be conjoining Uranus Saturday the 17th. This is a surprise or disruption around solar figures. So this is, fathers, coaches, bosses, CEOs, presidents, kings, world leaders. There can be a rebellion against leadership or solar figures. So there can be an earthquake. So there's Uranian energy all week from Monday through Saturday because the full moon opposes Uranus and then the sun comes to a direct opposition Saturday. So there is this plot twist. Anything could happen, defiance, rebellious. So Mercury is squaring Pluto at the same time as the full moon in the early degrees of Taurus and Scorpio. So this is bringing some challenges between what is real and what is virtual. And this is bringing some challenges between the environment and technology, nature versus technology. Mercury square Pluto can bring deep thoughts, deep talks, deep conversations around this topics. It can bring, for writers, this is very much the energy of writing a psychological thriller or a horror film, or writing, around darker topics, taboo topics, psychological, psychotherapy, deep detective stuff, mysteries, forensic type of stuff, even archaeological kind of stuff. Mercury square Pluto can bring manipulation or triangulation in communication with others. We can be thinking, talking, or writing about taboo or underworld topics. We can be going very deep in psychotherapy, having a breakthrough in psychotherapy. We can be talking to or meeting with or interacting with in some way an underworld figure. That might just be in the literature or television or music that we're taking in. We may be talking to or meeting with a very powerful or wealthy person in some cases, depending on where it lands in our astrology, in our personal astrology. It's also the detective's moon. So again, cracking cases. I think I talked about that earlier. Cracking cases that are 28 years old, 7 years old, 2 years old, 1 year old. We're reading about it in the news, in the headlines. For the collective, there could be some challenging or bad news around technology, the tech bros, humanitarian ideals, space travel, air travel, robots, drones, AI, the future. Pluto just stationed, so Plutonian themes are intensified: death, destruction, demolition, regeneration, rebirth, transformation, things coming up that are buried beneath the surface, dealing with the shadow, facing our fears, our grief, our PTSD, our past traumas, all of that can be highlighted under this full moon. And, the full moon host or lord is Mars, who's trine Venus, which I do like for relationships. It's very passionate for relationships. It can also be a stellar performance in the theater or in comedy or in athletics. It can bring inspired action in art or athletics or justice. It can mark advocacy for the arts. And then Mars and Venus are also sextile Pluto. So there's this feeling of like these topics being transformed in subtle ways slowly over time that are creating a new future for this relationship, for this art, for this, you know, energetic expression through athletics, maybe martial arts, you know, but it can also have to do with, you know, speaking, any kind of self-expression, creative self-expression, really. Yeah, and then also Jupiter is squaring the nodes of fate. That is exact on the 18th. It's building as I record this video, even, which I'm recording this video May 8th, even though the full moon is coming up on May 12th. But Jupiter squares the nodes, it's building. We got a new Pope today. The Pope is the first American Pope. He's going by Leo. The 14th, which is interesting because Mars is in Leo, trining Venus, and Jupiter is coming up on a square with the nodes of fate. So it's very interesting astrology for this Pope. I have some more thoughts about that, but I don't think I'm going to share them right now. Maybe I will later in this video when I talk about the world's chart briefly, but I'm going very long on this video. I wanted to talk about the tarot cards. The minor arcana card associated with this decan of Scorpio is the Seven of Cups. And this has to do with illusory success, confusion, being seduced by power, prestige, or money, or being distracted by all of the options that are before you. Some of them may be temptation, some of them may be glamour or material things. Some of them may be more spiritual in nature, but it looks like, you know, it's not knowing what direction to go. So there's a little bit of cloudiness or confusion, or sometimes this is a card about illusion or delusion or fantasy. So there is some of that that is being highlighted under this full moon as well. The Knight of Wands is the court card in the tarot for the last decan of Scorpio, which this full moon is in. And the Knight of Wands is about, you know, he's an unpredictable figure. This is about unpredictability and flakiness, but it's also about action and bravery and valor, chivalry. I don't know. It's, you know, it's courageous, and it's riding into action. So there is, you know, something, it's very passionate. I relate this to the Mars and Venus trine that's going on, but also I relate this to some of the Uranian energy that's going on as well, because this Knight of Wands is kind of Promethean, like Uranus, where he can be very disruptive, and he's bringing the fire, you know. And then the Page of Cups on a broader level is associated with the entire quadrant that you know, Scorpio falls in the tarot wheel. And so this is very creative energy, but it's you know, it's childlike innocence, it's naivety, it's poetry, it's sensitivity and intuition, it's the birth of new ideas, it's birth, it's conception, it's painting, it's music, it's sweetness, it's vulnerability. That can also be highlighted under this full moon, and I relate that to the trine that's going on with the Scorpio full moon and Saturn, and particularly if you have any planets in Cancer that are finishing out that trine, you're in the sweet spot. And then the Ace of Cups is also on a broader level, one of the tarot cards for the entire quadrant that Scorpio falls in the tarot wheel. And this is about, you know, being handed a new opportunity from the universe or by God, a new opportunity in love, in faith, in hope, in inspiration. You may be starting on a new creative journey. It may be a new love journey or a new journey of inspiration in some other way. It marks, just abundance, the overflowing of like ideas and creativity. It's very fertile. Again, it can be conception. It can also be birth. It can also be an offering of love being handed to you from somewhere else. So it's a really beautiful energy, a beautiful card. This is all very fertile. It's all very creative. It's very emotional. It's very intuitive. And those are the court cards. And then I wanted to talk about in the LA chart, briefly, the USA chart and the world chart. In the LA chart, Cancer is rising. So this full moon is ruled by the moon in Scorpio. It looks like a lot of themes of sex and death and power are going on amongst the people of Los Angeles. Also maybe a divorce surge over this next couple of weeks. Jupiter is rising in that chart in the 12th house. So it looks like there's a lot of growth and learning about what has lived in our blind spots in Los Angeles, both physically and more metaphorically or figuratively. Aries is ruling the 10th house in the Los Angeles chart. So this is marking strong female leadership. It's also showing that some leadership is dissolving. It's showing new leadership emerging. It's showing embattled leadership. So there's a lot going on with the leadership of Los Angeles, a lot of different things. So then we would have to then look at the leadership's chart to see who I'm talking about, or you can read it in the news and pretty much guess who's who in those descriptions. In the LA chart, the 9th house is showing the growth of spiritual leadership. That's Taurus. And the growth of community challenge, or this is actually Pisces. The growth of, so in the LA's chart, Saturn and the North Node are in the 9th house. So it's showing the growth of spiritual leadership and communities. It's showing also challenges of spiritual neglect, abandonment, and starvation among the people. And it's showing, but the people are coming to the table to provide support for that. But it's also showing international affairs are growing for Los Angeles. So that's probably affiliated with the fact that the Olympics are on their way here. The sun is in the 11th house in the LA chart. So it's showing that solid groups and organizations are coming together with investments to feed people and to make the city more beautiful and to support the arts. In the USA chart, Taurus is in the 9th house. So it's showing that there's a shocking event with the leadership around international affairs that's coming around the full moon. Scorpio's in the 3rd house. So it's showing that the moon and the populace, there's death and destruction in neighborhoods and possibly high schools or elementary schools. Pisces is ruling the 7th house in the USA chart. So the Saturn North Node conjunction is there. So it makes it look like to me that Trump or the government in Washington is in a partnership or an alliance with the new Pope. Pluto stationed in the 6th house. So there is disease that's brewing in the country related to technology and or airborne diseases, things that are lurking beneath the surface. There is good news that the sextile to Venus and Mars show that there is an opportunity through intelligence and action to thwart or address this disease that's happening. Now, on the world chart, Venus is rising, so it's showing the rise of female leadership on a world global player level and some of the bigger events that are unfolding. Aries is ruling the 7th house, showing that the warring between nations is continuing under this full moon and being highlighted, but there are new alliances being formed also that are being highlighted under this full moon. There are new religions that are popping up all over and proliferating worldwide, new religions, new spiritual beliefs. That's reflected in the way that it angles the world chart. Scorpio's in the 2nd house of death in the financial system. So the world financial system as we know it is dying, is coming to an end. And this full moon is going to highlight exactly how that is going down. And we've been getting hints of it as Uranus has been moving through Taurus over the past 8 years, but we are getting into these final stages of Uranus and Taurus. So this is like the real kick in the ass on the way out, where it's like, the final shakeups are coming. And let's see. Taurus in the 8th house. Shocking disruptions in our financial entanglements with others for the USA. And technology transforming our children. Issues around technology transforming our children. Also coming out under this full moon in the world chart. Shocking disruptions with our financial entanglements in the world. So the whole world financial system is, very volatile. And, you know, we're likely moving much more towards digital currency. I think in America, we're moving towards universal basic income. And, but this stuff is not, all the way implemented yet, but you can see that that's where it's going in the planets. Slowly but surely, that's where it's going. We're basically there. It's just a matter of time for the physical world to catch up. It's already in the field or whatever. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I will stop there. I've been talking for 35 minutes. It's a long video, so if you've stayed until now, thank you so much. I love sharing astrology. I love sharing it with you. The best is if you contact me for a one-on-one reading. I read on Zoom, so I can read for people anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. You can keep a recording of the reading if you want. And if you don't want, we don't have to record the reading. And I think everyone should have their birth chart done at least once in their life, because it is just such an enlightening, awakening experience. It's just another tool in our spiritual arsenal for navigating this wonderful, beautiful, but crazy, wild world that we live in. And if you, again, please like, subscribe, comment, share, help me in the algorithm. And if you would like to thank me for this reading by buying me a coffee or tea or a croissant, then I will put my Venmo in the description so that you can make a donation. And there's also going to be a link in the description to book a reading with me. My email will be there to book a reading with me if you want to say hi or email me to book a reading. Thank you again for joining me. It is my honor to read for you. Happy full moon in Scorpio.